This is WOR New York, an RKO General Station. Your dial is set for 15 minutes of late news with John Scott reporting.
11,000 more workers, mostly in the auto industry, are losing their jobs. The National Cancer Institute studying a virus that may cause human cancer. New York City cops must wear name tags beginning Monday morning. The Mans is partly cloudy tonight and cooler, the low in the 30s. Sunny and unseasonably mild tomorrow, the high in the low 50s. This is John Scott with the 8 o'clock edition of the news featuring the Financial Review. More layoffs are in the news. Today, more than 11,000 workers, mostly in the auto industry, learned that they would be laid off their jobs indefinitely. General Motors says it will put almost 3,000 employees at its Lordstown, Ohio plant on indefinite layoff beginning January 20th. 3 GM divisions in Indiana also announced layoffs affecting a total of 1,335 employees. In all, GM's indefinite layoffs this month have affected 1/4 of its 370,000 hourly workers in the United States. Chrysler says over 1,000 of the 3,000 workers at its casting division plant in Newcastle, Indiana, will be laid off Monday. 3 major tire companies, Goodyear, Firestone, and Cyberling, announced over 2,000 layoffs. Other companies announcing layoffs include United Airlines. United saying it's furloughing 599 employees and reducing the number of its daily flights because of the economic slump and energy problems. The Labor Department says the government is confident of having 300,000 jobless workers employed in public service jobs by the middle of March. A Labor Department official says the government will have to spend 5 times as much as it's now spending to provide jobs for 1/7 of those now out of work. The official estimates that all levels of government will spend about $17 billion to ease the pains of unemployment. Meanwhile, President Ford reportedly is considering asking Congress to approve a $15 billion rebate on 1974 income taxes. This would reportedly amount to about 10% of the total taxes. The Booth newspapers say Mr. Ford will make the request in a State of the Union message to Congress, coupling it with the proposed tax cut for 1975. The new chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee wants a tax cut for middle and lower income people. Representative Al Ullman thinks a cut will help the recession by pumping billions of dollars back into the economy. The Oregon Democrat wants the measure acted on quickly.
I'm going to recommend to the committee that we go into immediate consideration of an emergency tax measure. It's my hope that it will involve immediate relief to individuals in the low and middle income brackets. It will give some corporate relief where it's needed and might very well include part of the energy package and an end of the depletion allowance that we had recommended last year. That's the kind of package I think we can act quickly on. It's my hope we can get it to the floor of Congress by the 1st of March and get it passed by the House and then over to the other body where they can move on it hopefully very expeditiously and hopefully limiting it to the emergency measures, non-structural measures that will feed revenues back into the economy, which is the whole purpose of the bill.
Major northeastern sugar refiners cut the price of their industrial sugars by more than $3.50 a hundredweight today. The price cuts by CPC International, Amstar, Sucrest, and the National Sugar Refining Company are the first since December 13th. The Food and Drug Administration has extended its restrictions on the use of saccharin. This came after the FDA received a new scientific report which failed to establish the safety of the artificial sweetener. Since February 1972, the FDA has restricted the average adult's intake of saccharin to 1 gram a day. The FDA says it will take several months to complete more exhaustive tests. The National Cancer Institute is trying to determine whether a virus isolated at the institute is a human cancer virus. The virus was discovered in blood cells originally taken from a victim of a rare but lethal form of leukemia. The institute is studying the virus to determine whether the virus is of human origin and not a contaminant from an animal. A White House spokesman says President Ford is giving intensive consideration to South Vietnam's request for additional U.S. funds. Presidential spokesman Ron Nessen says Mr. Ford feels the amount of aid voted by Congress to both South Vietnam and Cambodia is inadequate. Nessen said the president's concern relates to what he feels is necessary to allow the South Vietnamese adequately to defend themselves. Nessen wouldn't say how much extra aid the president might seek. Senate Majority Leader Mike Mansfield said he's opposed to any additional aid for South Vietnam or Cambodia, and the Montana Democrat adds that such a proposal would probably meet vigorous resistance in Congress. Former President Nixon celebrated his 62nd birthday today at his San Clemente, California estate. Mr. Nixon, recuperating from surgery for a blood clot in his left leg, spent the day quietly with his wife, Pat. The WOR News Time. It's 5 minutes past 8. Food shoppers, by this time, one of your New Year resolutions should be to save on your weekly food bill, and the place to do that is at any nearby Bohack or village supermarket. Here are some examples of real savings for you. USDA choice beef, top or bottom round roast for a low $1.29 a pound. You'll also find a pork loin sale. The rib end is just a low 79 cents a pound. And here's a special price reduction. USDA grade A large white eggs, only 79 cents a dozen. And with any additional $5 purchase and coupons, you can save on all of the following. Wesson oil, the gallon jug, only $4.79. Scott towels, the jumbo roll, just 29 cents. Hunt's tomato sauce, the 8-ounce can, just 5 cents. And Pillsbury Ballard biscuits, the 8-ounce size, just 7 cents. So remember, in 1975, the place to save is at any nearby Bohack or village supermarket, where you'll find an abundance of quality foods at old-fashioned prices. The federal government has found appalling conditions in some local nursing homes. The Department of Health, Education, and Welfare says it will no longer support nursing homes that don't meet federal requirements. HEW says it will cut off federal Medicaid funds to 5 homes in the city and 9 in New York State. It's part of a new federal policy. Assistant HEW Administrator Peter Franklin explains.
Where the nursing home has a provider agreement and is providing services under the Medicaid program, and we go in as the federal government and find that this home does not meet the conditions of participation established by federal regulation under Medicaid, we will notify the state, be it New York or any other state in the union, these are national regulations, that we are terminating the federal financial participation, the 50 cents on the dollar, to this nursing home through the state. And this is very major. This will assure that the taxpayers' funds will not be used to support unfit care.
Governor Carey will name a special prosecutor to investigate alleged Medicaid fraud in the nursing home industry in a day or two. Informed sources said that those being given strongest consideration for the post were Special State Prosecutor Maurice Najari and Joseph Hines, First Assistant to Brooklyn District Attorney Eugene Gold. Also reported to be under consideration was Morris Abram, former president of Brandeis University. This just in, former Brooklyn Congressman Bertram L. Podell, a state and federal lawmaker for 20 years, was sentenced tonight to 6 months in jail and fined $5,000 for using his influence as a Democratic congressman in an effort to obtain a Bahamas route for a Florida air taxi service. The Long Island Lighting Company, Lilco, now has the authorization to boost electric rates for the second time in a year. The State Public Service Commission has approved the latest rate increase, which would yield $35,600,000 a year for Lilco. Together with the interim rates in effect since last June, the utility would receive $64,300,000. The director of meat purchases for the Waldbaum supermarket chain has pleaded guilty in federal court to receiving kickbacks from wholesale suppliers. Without opposition from the U.S. Attorney's Office, 51-year-old Barnett Friedman was allowed to plead guilty to one count of receiving over $4,500 in kickbacks during 1972. Now, we'll have the weather and the top of the news in brief right after this.
Someday you'll own, someday you'll own, sooner or later you'll own General's.
General Tire doesn't claim its tire experts have all the answers, but they can tell you just about everything you want to know about tires. And that's important with so many new kinds of tires coming out and so many different claims about those tires. The General Tire specialist is trained to analyze what tire fits your driving habits, your car, your budget. And the General Tire specialist can handle your automotive service needs, too. He's one of the best reasons why, sooner or later, you'll own Generals. Check your yellow pages for the General Tire headquarters nearest you.
Sooner or later, you'll own Generals. Sooner or later, you'll own Generals.
Here's the Weather Watch update for New York City and the vicinity. Mostly cloudy and partly cloudy tonight. And cooler with the low in the middle 30s. Sunny and unseasonably mild tomorrow with a high in the low 50s. Increasing cloudiness tomorrow night, the low near 40. Cloudy on Saturday with a chance of rain developing in the day, the high in the low 50s. Right now in clear mid-Manhattan, it's 42 degrees. The humidity 79%, the wind northeast at 5 miles an hour, and the barometer is rising from 30.09 inches. And the top stories, more than 11,000 workers, mostly in the auto industry, are being laid off their jobs indefinitely. The Labor Department says the government expects to have about 300,000 unemployed workers on public service job payrolls by March. The White House spokesman says President Ford is giving intensive consideration to more aid for both South Vietnam and Cambodia. The National Cancer Institute is studying a virus isolated in its laboratories to see if it's a human cancer virus. New York City cops must wear name tags beginning Monday morning. And that, friends, is the 8 o'clock edition of the news. This is John Scott reporting, bidding you good night. Next news as it happens, next scheduled news at 9.
This is WOR New York,